If the morning is when the brain shines like the sunrise, then noon is the fragile edge between clarity and the fog that follows. Have you ever sat down at 2 p.m. and felt like your brain was steaming? Unable to form a full sentence, forgetting what you were about to do, just wanting to lie down as fast as possible. They call it afternoon fatigue. But from the perspective of a brain specialist, I see something else. Your brain is crying for help. The only difference is, it doesn't scream. It just slows down, fades like a radio losing signal. And strangely enough, it all starts from something that seems so small. You didn't eat lunch on time. We grew up believing, eat big in the morning, moderate at lunch, light at dinner. But no one told us this: if you eat lunch after noon, you're slowly pushing your brain into a state of low blood flow, low sugar, and low nutrients. You might think, I'm fine, still functioning. But the quiet afternoon tiredness, the random irritability, those moments when you forget a familiar name, they all begin with something so small. And what happens next might just change the way you think about one timely lunch. The brain collapses in silence just because lunch is late. You won't hear a warning sound. No sirens, no sharp pain. Just a slowing down. A hazy feeling like you just woke up from a nap you never took. After 60, the brain no longer stores energy like it did in youth. The later the meal, the less glucose the brain has as its main fuel. And just 30 minutes past noon, your brain already begins to run low. A study from the U.S. Institute on Aging showed, older adults who eat lunch after 1 p.m. face up to a 25% drop in short-term memory performance compared to those who eat before noon. We call this phenomenon, brain fog. Is a mental cloud rolling in. You're still sitting there, eyes open, talking, but only half of you feel present. Ms. Margaret, 67, from Colorado, once told me, "Doctor, I feel so clear in the mornings, but by afternoon, my head feels like cotton. I keep putting my phone in the fridge, then forgetting all about it." We ran tests, no major brain damage. But there was one thing she always did. She ate lunch after 1:30 p.m. because she didn't want to interrupt her workflow. Only when she moved her lunch to 11:50 a.m. did things begin to change. You see, the brain doesn't wait for you to finish your work before it asks for fuel. It needs to be refueled on time. And if you make it wait too long, it quietly withdraws from the front lines, without saying a word. So what exactly is happening inside the brain when you delay lunch? I think you deserve to know more about that. The biological shock: the brain needs to be charged before noon. The brain isn't like the stomach, it doesn't growl to tell you it's hungry. It just stays silent. But behind that silence is a series of subtle disruptions, and if you're not paying attention, you'll miss the chance to stay alert through the rest of the afternoon. Around 11:30 to 12 o'clock, your cortisol level, which helps keep you awake, starts to drop. At the same time, the glucose your brain used all morning is nearly gone. The brain, though it makes up only 2% of your body weight, consumes up to 20% of your energy. And it needs to be refueled on time. If you wait until 1 p.m. to eat, the brain no longer has enough energy to function normally. It starts prioritizing survival functions like heart rate and breathing and powers down the more delicate ones, like memory, focus, and emotional regulation. What's the result? You feel sleepy, even though it's midday. You snap over the smallest things. You forget who just called you 10 minutes ago. None of this is because I'm just getting old. It's because I let my brain run out of energy before it was replenished. And if you still have doubts, just notice the next time you skip lunch, then see at 3 p.m., which is when you still feel like yourself. But here's the deeper truth: when the brain is tired, it doesn't just affect you, it affects everyone around you, too. The family connections that fade away. Ms. Lind, a 71 from Oregon, once shared a story that left me silent for a long time. She said, "Every afternoon, my grandchild runs up to hug me and tell me about school, and I just nod. Not because I don't love him, but because at that moment, my mind just isn't clear enough to understand." No one tells you that a tired brain makes you feel distant. But the truth is, a brain in a foggy state no longer has the energy to connect with someone else's emotions. You're not irritated. You just don't have the clarity to truly listen. You're not forgetful. You just don't have the energy to remember the important thing someone just said. I once met an elderly man, sitting in the middle of a noisy family dinner without saying a word. He wasn't sad. He had just eaten lunch at 2 p.m., and now his mind was drifting somewhere else. And over time, those tiny connections, the check-ins, the shared laughs, the warm little moments quietly fall away. Just because at noon, we didn't feed the brain in time with a proper meal. So if there's a golden hour for the brain to recharge, what is the best time for it? And why could eating lunch before noon change your entire afternoon? The golden window, 11:45 to 12 o'clock, a time for clarity. There are certain times in the day, when you align just right, everything becomes lighter and clearer. For the brain after age 60, the period from 11:45 to 12 o'clock is the golden window when every system in the body is open to receiving energy. At this time, insulin is steady, helping glucose reach the brain efficiently. Stress hormones begin to drop. Your body clock shifts gently into a restful mode. In other words, if you eat lunch during this window, you're not just refueling, you're helping your brain reset for an entirely new cycle. Many of my patients have told me something surprisingly consistent: whenever I eat before noon, I work faster, remember better, and don't snap in the afternoon. We started calling it the lunch clarity effect, the afternoon alertness that comes from eating lunch on time. But this isn't just theory. I witnessed it clearly through the story of Mr. Clark, a 68-year-old man who once lived in a constant state of exhaustion. And what he shared after changing his lunch routine might make you never want to delay your midday meal again. Mr. Clark, the man who came back after 14 days of timely lunches. Mr. Clark, 68, living in Montana, used to be a very disciplined man. But that very discipline led him to skip lunch often to finish chores or tend the garden. "I figured if I'm not hungry at noon, I'll just eat later in the afternoon." He said during his first visit, showing signs of sluggishness, mild confusion, and even forgetting his follow-up appointment. At that point, I didn't prescribe any medication. I gave him just one task: start eating lunch at exactly 11:50 a.m. every day, for 14 days straight. Don't change anything else. At first, he was annoyed. The doctor won't give me medicine, but wants me to eat on time. But he gave it a try, because he had nothing to lose. On day 4, he called. "Today I finished the garden and still remember I hadn't drunk water yet, and that's odd." On day 9, his wife noticed. He's a lot less irritable, and he sounds more alive when talking. On day 14, he returned with a completely different smile. "This afternoon, I was able to read again. Before, I'd always nod off halfway through." Mr. Clark's story made me believe even more in one thing. Eating on time means living in sync with the brain's rhythm. And perhaps what makes this simple habit so powerful is that it quietly breaks a common routine many people fall into, without even realizing it. The eat when free habit and the invisible price you pay. In many years of working with older adults, I noticed one common habit no one ever questions: eating lunch when free. "Let me just finish this first. I'll cook later and make dinner too. It's fine, a little late won't hurt." But the problem is, by the time you're free, your brain is no longer alert enough to fully receive the meal. You eat because you're too hungry. And by then, the brain doesn't absorb nutrients anymore. It's just struggling to survive. The result is, you eat fast, you rush, you're more likely to grab low-quality, high-carb food, and the fatigue lingers long after the meal. I once asked a patient, if you could choose one time each day for your brain to be cared for, when would you choose it? He answered, I'd say the morning. I smiled and said, no. It's noon. Because that's when your brain starts to dip, and if you don't lift it, it'll take you down with it. So how do you shift from eat when free to eat on time? I have a simple method, a small challenge that many of my patients have tried. And maybe, you'll start from there too. 7-Day Challenge, On-Time Lunch. A clearer mind, a lighter day. I call this the Lunch Before 12 Challenge. A small action that has transformed daily habits for many patients over 60. You don't need to change your entire meal plan right away. You don't need a fancy diet. All you need to do is eat lunch before noon for 7 straight days. Even if it's just a light meal like soup, soft rice, or a healthy sandwich, send your brain a clear signal. I'm taking care of you, on time. Every day. To make it easier, I suggest 3 simple steps. Set an alarm at 11:30. This is your cue to start wrapping up whatever you're doing. Prepare a simple, easy-to-digest lunch. Just a small portion, so your brain doesn't burn energy on digestion. Eat in quiet, without watching TV. Let your brain enjoy the meal as a gift, not a duty. After 7 days, you'll start to notice, no more strange afternoon sleepiness, better memories, smoother conversations with loved ones, and most of all, a stable daily rhythm returning to your life. You don't need to chase complicated programs. Just eating on time every day at lunch is already a powerful gift for your brain. And that leads us to something deeper. You're not just caring for yourself, you're preserving connection and presence for the people who love you. You're not just eating alone, you're nourishing your connections. You know, when an older adult eats lunch on time, it's not just their brain that recovers. The people around them feel it too. I once asked an 8-year-old granddaughter, what do you love most about visiting grandma in the afternoon? She answered without hesitation, because after lunch, grandma's all done eating, and she's super awake, she tells the funniest stories. That answer was simple, but it pointed to something no medical textbook ever spells out. A healthy, well-timed brain is the foundation for your full presence in your family's life. You're no longer snappy when the kids come home late. You remember when your grandchild asks you to save her cookies. You laugh more. You listen more fully. You truly live, not just drift through broken naps and late meals. And for me, that's the real goal of all health advice. Not just to make you live longer, but to help you live clearly and live fully with the people you love. A simple on-time lunch might just be the first step in coming back to yourself. And that's exactly why we need a gentle commitment that could change your brain's whole life. I'm not inviting you into a strict diet. I'm not asking you to overhaul your entire routine. I'm simply suggesting a small promise to yourself: eat lunch before 1 noon for 7 days. Why 7 days? Because that's enough time for your brain to feel a new rhythm, and enough for you to realize that everything you thought was just aging might change. I've seen it happen. Dozens, hundreds of patients who came to me in a cloud of fatigue. And after just 1 week, they said, "Doctor, why does my head feel so much clearer just from eating lunch on time?" It's not magic. It's the biological truth of a brain that's always been waiting for your support. It's just that, until now, you hadn't given it the right timing. You can start today. Set a simple reminder. Prepare a small, easy meal. Sit down and eat before noon. And let your body, your memory, your emotions begin to revive. Because sometimes, a small change doesn't just save your afternoon, it reawakens a rhythm of life you thought you'd lost. And finally, please remember this. You're not alone. There are thousands of people over 60 walking this same path. Together, we are rebuilding a healthier rhythm, starting with a single on-time lunch. If we could draw an emotional map of the brain after 60, we'd see a defining line, before and after lunch. Before noon, the brain runs on energy stored from the morning. After noon, if not refueled on time, the brain starts to squeeze shut delicate regions, memory centers, language processing, and emotional balance. And then we tell ourselves, "I'm old, that's why I forget." At this age, irritability is normal. I never feel like talking in the afternoon. But that's not aging. That's a brain missing nutrients at the moment it needs them most. It's like leaving a lamp burning since morning without adding oil. By noon, it dims, flickers, and fades. And we blame it on the old lamp. I didn't write this to scare you. I wrote it to give you hope. That clarity has always been within your reach. That even one consistent, on-time lunch could revive a mental current you thought was fading. And if you've ever thought, "It's too late for me," please remember. Your brain doesn't care how old you are, it only responds to how you care for it, each day. Starting tomorrow at noon. Just try. Reconnect with your brain through a simple lunch before noon. We often talk about reconnecting with loved ones, with nature, with the world around us. But sometimes, what we need most is to reconnect with our brain. You don't have to start with anything big. Just a small milestone lunch before noon. It's like gently laying the first brick to rebuild the foundation of clarity, memory, and emotional balance. And when you sit down on time, eat a simple lunch, you're telling your body, "I care about you. I choose clarity, calm, and well-being." You don't have to wait for your health to decline before making a change. You can begin today. And with each passing day, clarity will become part of your living identity, just like you've always been, someone thoughtful, attentive, compassionate, and truly connected to life. If this video awakened something in you, leave a comment. I choose lunch before noon for a clearer day. Share this video with someone you love over 60. Because maybe, just one on-time lunch could help them hold on to the clarity they've been slowly losing. You deserve to live with clarity and fullness at every age.